Welcome again to Lakeshore Focus, a weekly show highlighting the key issues, important events, and interesting people in our region. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick. Today we have two of my favorite people on the show, and they happen to also be two outstanding leaders in our community. It was an easy decision to select them for an interview, but there's an interesting twist to their life journeys. They both have changed careers and have held the same job. Confused? We are here to help clarify, and to make that happen, meet Lisa Daugherty, who is the president and CEO of the Lake Area United Way, and Steve Conger, who is the director of development and marketing at Tradewinds. Glad to have you guys both on the show.
Thanks for having us.
And it's so nice that you dress very similarly in your little outfits.
We think alike.
Yeah, we
obviously.
do. Yeah.
You know, maybe that's kind of scary. So we'll get into this thing about this similar job here at some point. So you both have really made pretty significant career changes here in the past, for you in the past couple of years, and you just recently, right, Steve?
Yeah.
So, Lisa, you left what to move into what?
Well, I was with the local media company, the Times, for most of my career. In fact, I started out in high school there and worked all through.
Just a few years ago, right?
Right, just a few years ago. I'm not going to tell you exactly how many, but all through high school, college, undergraduate, graduate school. It seemed that whenever I needed a job, they had an opening. I did leave a time or two for a short period of time, but the vast majority of my working career was with the Times. I jumped into the nonprofit world when I left the paper to go to Tradewinds. I had been a board member there for about 8 years, and they had an opening in the marketing director position, and I was ready for a change in my career, so the stars were aligned and I made the move.
And so you went there, and now you're at the United Way, which we'll get back to. So, Steve, you're in that job that she was in.
That's right.
So now we've given that clue to the audience what the connection is here. But you made also a very significant career change.
Yeah, for 31 years I've been a United Methodist pastor. I'm still a pastor, but was serving a local church, serving at Ridge Methodist Church in Munster, and kind of knew it was just time to move on and do something else. And like Lisa, I had been on the board for a number of years, and when the position opened up, I gave John Gold, the CEO, a call, and I said, I'd like to talk to you about it. And I think he was a little skeptical that somebody would want to shift from what I was doing, but really the stars were aligned for me too. I just really felt that's where I was being called to go.
Maybe he was more nervous that a board member was asking to have a private conversation with him.
That could have been it too.
You know, because he probably knew your reputation, Steve, and he's like, oh my gosh, what's he going to say? Right?
Well, I told him pretty much right up front what I was interested in. So,
Lisa, can you kind of share a little bit about, you know, your decision to leave, kind of what happened there too? Steve shared a little of his.
Sure, absolutely. Well, you know, I mentioned earlier that the majority of my career was with the Times Media Company. If you look at the roles that I played within the organization.
Which was about everything, right?
Well, right, you see a lot of change. I was in the circulation department, I was in the advertising department, I was the HR director there, moved over as the advertising director. If you look at the time frames for each of those roles, there's like this magic 7-year period for me. And each time that I made a major transition within the company, it was really about, you know, getting to a point where I was I don't know if comfortable is the right word, but I need to be challenged and I need to be learning something new. And for my career to go beyond where it was, I would need to relocate within the organization. And my nieces, my family keeps me here. I can't take them with me. At the same time, with this opening with Tradewinds, I was really getting curious and interested about trying something entirely different. So that challenge was really interesting.
So in all those assignments there, did you ever get the bathroom cleaning duty also?
No, I didn't.
Didn't get that? That was one
That's
of the ones you passed over.
It's not to say that I didn't clean the bathroom. And I certainly was chased into the bathroom for, you know, answers or decisions at times. But
which could be another really interesting story, I'm sure. The time Lisa was chased into the bathroom.
yes.
So that's fascinating to me about just kind of these changes and shifts. Was there? It's got to be really tough for a minister to make a decision to leave what people perceive to be your vocation in life.
But I don't see myself leaving ministry. And I think I retired from pastoral or parish ministry, but not from ministry. Tradewinds is ministry. And if you've ever been to Tradewinds and see what goes on in the interaction with our participants there, it's ministry. It's just doing it differently. And so I just saw it as a new opportunity and a new way to do ministry, and I don't see myself as ending. Actually, I was appointed by my bishop to Tradewinds in an extension ministry.
Wow, that's interesting. So for those who may not know what Tradewinds is, give us the 30-second.
Tradewinds is a social service agency that serves people with disabilities, helping all people achieve their highest potential. We really try to make people make a difference in the world and realize that they are making a difference, whether that's working, because we have a lot of occupations that people do, or it's just interacting and growing in various skill sets. So we allow people to reach their potential, whatever that is.
Lisa, how well did he do on it, since that was your previous job? So, did he do it well enough?
Yeah, absolutely, and I actually love the way that he framed it as ministry. I do think that I would agree with that, and that's the first time that I understood kind of a calling.
Yeah.
There is a calling to do that type of work.
Did you feel a calling when you went to Tradewinds? Or more an escape?
No. It really was a desire to make a difference.
And Lisa had been there as a part of the board, so she, was a part of the organization in a lot of ways prior to making that transition
Correct.
to employment there.
Correct.
So you had a heart for that already.
Yes, and I have a heart for Northwest Indiana. I really, truly care about this community, and I saw this as an opportunity to make a difference in a different way.
So how did you feel about going to the United Way? Did that feel like being kind of called over to that, or was that just kind of something you sought?
Well, I didn't really I wasn't necessarily seeking out an opportunity, because I want to be perfectly honest, leaving Tradewinds is the hardest thing I've ever done. It's very easy to become close to the consumers there and care
Right.
About that community. But when I looked at the job description, the posting for the Lake area position, it was me. In the description, I read me over and
Kept seeing your
over.
name in
I did, and what I realized was that by moving to Lake Area United Way, I could continue to make a difference in the lives of those folks that are going to Tradewinds, but in a bigger way, I could impact lives in Lake County.
And Lisa's still engaged with Tradewinds.
Yes.
I mean, she's still involved, she's still a supporter, so that tie hasn't ended.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's interesting. You talked about this shift of jobs, and was it strange stepping off the board into the role of employee for both of you?
Well, I think to a degree it was strange for all of us. I think it was strange for John Gold. I think
Yeah.
it was strange for the Tradewinds employees. It was certainly strange for me, because I didn't want to come in like a board member. I wanted to very quickly assimilate and be one of them. And it took a little bit of time to build that trust in a little bit different way.
Have you had to straighten
Absolutely,
it?
very, very similar story in that there was definitely some transition time in trust building that had to take place, because you're coming off the board, so you're a little suspect.
So how about the transition from leaving your church? You were at that church how long?
17 years.
17 years.
Yeah.
So how about the transition from leaving there for you?
I kind of created a runway in some ways, in that I started working on a contract basis with Tradewinds. And so I would, on my days off from the church, I would be at Tradewinds kind of getting started and starting to acclimate myself to that. So by the time I ended at the church in the middle of May, I really was already starting the Tradewinds. So it wasn't like an abrupt end and a immediate new beginning. It was almost a very smooth transition for me. I'm not sure it was that easy for the church because of that transition, because they kind of felt that I was being pushed and pulled in a lot of different ways. But for me, it was a very helpful transition.
I like that concept of runway,
Yeah.
because that's really an interesting parallel, because you kind of have to get running really fast, and at some point though you just have to pull the stick and get off the ground.
Absolutely.
Kind of move into the next phase. I know you're so family oriented, Lisa, and with your biological family, but it must have felt like the Times was a family to you, because you were there so long. I mean, so how was that transition for you moving away from that family?
That was absolutely the hardest part about my transition, without question. That said, I still have very close relationships with the people at the Times. I have a very good relationship with Chris White even, coming in as a new member of the Times. I joked with newsroom folks after I left, I saw them more out in the community than I did when I was actually in the Munster facility. So I've kept, and I'm very, very grateful for this, I've kept a very close tie with the Times.
So, Steve, for you, what do you see as your big challenge, right? What's right in front of you right now? It's like, man, what excites me about this job is the challenge of, because that's what you talked about. You love the challenge.
Telling our story. I'm a storyteller. I think that's what pastors are, is storytellers. And I see the biggest role that my team has is telling our story, telling the story of the consumers, telling the story of what Tradewinds does and how it impacts lives and how it changes lives. And so I'm always looking, my team is always looking for stories to tell, people stories. It's not about money, it's not about buildings, it's not about classrooms, it's about the lives in those classrooms. And that's what ministry is. And so it's very similar, it's just telling the story. And that's the big challenge, is collecting those stories and finding outlets to share those stories.
Is there a balance or a more important part for both of you on the excitement of the change or the challenge? I mean, or does those feel like the same thing? I mean, a lot of people are very excited about, oh, I'm changing, so this is just really neat. So people go, I just want to jump on this horse and ride it.
I thrive with challenge. And so this is not only, what I'm experiencing right now is not just a change for me in my career, but Lakeshore United Way is going through enormous change right now. And, much of that is out of pure need. United Way has needed a change for some time. And there's a lot of heavy lifting right now in terms of strategy and as you say, getting the word out with the ultimate goal to improve lives in a more sustainable, meaningful way than what we have for many, many years. So I'm excited. There are moments when I feel a little overwhelmed because we're taking on, an enormous challenge trying to improve lives. And there are many folks in Lake County that do need they need a hand up.
Yeah, it's interesting. You thrive on the challenge, and I asked the same question to both of you. And as you're talking, I'm thinking, well, I know the answer for Steve, because this is the guy who jumped in and chaired the flood effort. Talk about a challenge. So you do like the challenge, don't you?
I do. I started a church. started a church with just my wife and at that point one child. And yeah, the challenge is exciting. It is overwhelming at times, but you thrive on that opportunity to put an imprint on something and know that you can lead it in some exciting directions. I'm very fortunate to have followed Lisa, though, because Lisa set a lot of the great groundwork that I'm able to pick up on and just run with. So she hired the team I've got with me, and they are phenomenal in helping me to get that story told and to fulfill that challenge.
Now, that's just kind of interesting. You started that church, so if you have a wife and a kid, does that mean you have 2 members when you started?
Pretty much.
Pretty much, that's it.
That's it.
Was it a little lonely just preaching to the 2 of them?
No, we had 250 people our first Sunday.
Oh.
So.
You were doing something right from the beginning.
Well, you kind of fix it a little bit. We averaged about 200 when I left that church. It was a good church. I was there for 5 years, and it about killed me.
Where was that at?
In Warsaw.
Oh, okay.
The average adult age was 26 when I left, so it was all young people, and they demanded a lot of time and effort.
Yeah, but you were young at the time, right?
I was younger. I was a lot younger. Yeah.
So you could take it.
I did. I loved it. I loved it. Yeah, it was a great time in my life.
So what are some of the other challenges for you right now? What is this whole transformation you feel like you're kind of guiding at United Way?
Well, United Ways have seen their campaigns decline for a number of years for a variety of reasons. Sum it up very quickly, has everything to do with technology. People can donate directly to their agency of choice. They're more informed. They see United Way as a middleman. If you look around our area here in Northwest Indiana, the employer base is very different. So with that come declining campaigns. So with that, there's a need for change. But we also realize that despite the millions of dollars that we've been raising and distributing into the community, conditions aren't changing in a meaningful way. So we're taking a more laser-like approach, and we're going to focus on a very specific issue. We're going to fundraise around that, come to the table as a backbone organization, convening others around that issue and facilitating change that other United Ways that are ahead of us in this process have accomplished.
So that's got to be
And
neat,
sustained.
kind of that new strategy. I'm always telling people in organizations and businesses, if you're not changing your strategies, it just, the old stuff doesn't work on almost
No.
anything anymore.
No, everything's changing.
You know?
No, if you look at our trajectory, if we continue doing it the way we've been doing it, I think that I wouldn't be able to retire, quite frankly, in this role. I think that people they're finding so many more options. So we've got to be relevant.
So it'd be the opposite of the runway launch. It'd be
Yes.
you'd be approaching the runway, but it would be crash and burn
Yeah.
if you were going that direction.
Correct.
So
Yeah, that sounds dramatic, but that's the case.
yeah. And we see organizations that do. That just kind of happens to. So how do you two still work together on stuff? I mean, how does that interaction happen?
I don't know that there's any specific day-to-day projects that we're working on together.
But we've communicated and talked and shared, and
Certainly. Tradewinds is, an agency that United Way has supported for many, many years. So I'm still, and just like with the Times, I'm still in very close contact with a lot of the Tradewinds employees and consumers. I attend their events, et cetera. We're both in the business of improving lives here.
Well, what made this work? It may sound like I'm asking you to brag a little bit, but I mean, what is in your character or who you are that's made this work? Because I can think of lots of stories. I mean, you follow a very strong leader in Lou Martinez, that ran that organization a long time, and that could have been, kind of a nasty thing, and you both stepped off the board. That could have been very troublesome. But you guys have made this work. So what have you done that sometimes other people don't do?
you
to make
focus
this really
on the
work?
things that were being done right and not worry about the things that weren't, and don't look to blame. I think that's the key to it, is celebrate all the wonderful things that Lisa got started and put forward. She really, I say this quite honestly, she set the groundwork to make my transition into that much easier, because a lot of things, the people she hired, the ability to convince the board and the CEO to look in some new directions and seeing marketing in a little bit different way, set the stage for me to be able to take that to a next direction. And so I celebrate that. I mean, it's a huge thing for me. I'm not having to go in there and fight those initial battles, because she fought those battles for me.
So what did you do to make it work, both in when you left the Times and went to Tradewinds, and then even in this? Because I think I have my ear to the ground, and all I heard was good things about Lisa's over here and she's doing great stuff. And sometimes you'll hear so-and-so's over there, they're really struggling, or all they're doing is complaining about the previous people or the board or anything else. But I didn't hear that.
Well, I think it's a focus on the mission, and it's caring about that mission and surrounding yourself with a team that's as committed to that mission with the same passion and getting it done. And when you accomplish that, you have a whole heck of a lot of fun and gratification from that.
Absolutely.
Some people might say, why did it take you so long, or why did you wait so long to make this career change? Because you were there, how long were you in the paper?
Well, if you count my part-time work
I'm not counting.
as a kid, I mean, really almost 30 years.
Okay, and you were in ministry
31 years,
so that must be the magic number or something. But so, what happened there? I mean, just,
What took so long?
yeah, what took so long?
Well, I did care about the work that I was doing there. Certainly cared about the people. I do think that there's an important role that media plays. When I was in advertising, I saw my role as helping businesses grow, and so I did get a lot of fulfillment out of that.
Had that occurred to you? It was time to move on, like 5 years before, 10 years before, 2 years before?
I would say, I can go back and I can pinpoint about 2 years prior.
Back to the rule of 7, the 7-year cycle. It's been at 28 years. You were
Right.
going- you were
Yes,
going-
I hadn't even realized that, but yeah, that's probably.
That 7-year cycle is really interesting because I hear a lot of people talk about that 7-year cycle in careers. For you, Steve, I mean, at what point did you also say, man, you know, I really need to do something different? You know, I mean, when did that start for
Well,
you?
I think I've always been very engaged in the community. And for me, the community is very important. And so I saw my ministry going beyond simply the local church and realized that for the benefit of that local church, they needed that transition too. They needed somebody who was going to focus more on them, where I could focus on the community in a different way. So I think it was a win-win. Now, when did that happen? I think like Lisa, you look back and you can look back and say, yeah, probably these were markers. But I didn't really have that revelation until probably last fall. I started to realize, yeah, it's probably time for me to move on, at least intellectually, to be able to say that.
Yeah, I speculate that there's lots of people out there who are unhappy, they've lost the challenge, they're bored. I mean, something's going on. They're like, this career just is not where I need to be. If you were giving somebody like that advice, what would you say to them who's at that spot in their life? Or maybe haven't reached that spot, but will get there. What would you say to them?
Can I say this? Have faith.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Have faith and trust. Even taking one step, that may not necessarily be where you're going to end up, but it's a step in a new direction. And your opportunity is going to be what you make of it.
Mm-hmm. That's good, I like that. What would you say to someone? She already took the faith thing, so you're...
Well, I think for most people, what prevents them from doing it is fear. They're afraid of the unknown. And I define fear as false expectations appearing real. So they're not really, you don't even know if it's real. You've got to get past that stuff you're creating and just call it faith, call it hope or whatever, and just say it's time to trust your gut and move forward. I mean, there's security in staying where you were. I mean, there was great security in staying in the church. I could have easily just moved to a different church and started out there, but that's not where I felt I was being called. It was being called to take that ministry in a different direction. And my superiors weren't real happy with that decision and that process, but I just knew I had to step beyond that boundary.
Right. That's great tied-in advice. So recognize the fear and try to kind of figure that out a little bit about yourself, because once you understand it's even there, then you say, you got to start taking some steps. You got to start moving in a direction towards something that will eventually probably pop into an opportunity. Did you guys practice this ahead of time or anything?
We've been working on this for weeks.
This is good. You guys are great in tandem. You dress alike. You have similar thoughts. No wonder you guys are so good in this job together. I really appreciate you being here and being on the show, and I love what you guys do in the community and really appreciate the leadership you provide our community. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Keith.
Thanks, Keith.
All right. How many times does the average American change careers or even jobs? There is a fairly wide range of answers floating around. Some seems to be speculation and other numbers are based on data which can be old. Average career changes are reported as 3 to 8. 7 or 8 seems high to me. My experience tells me the number should be 3 to 5. Now, average job changes have much higher numbers. I see data that accounts for age ranges, educational levels, and demographic characteristics. For my comments, the precise number is not the issue. The average American is changing jobs and careers quite a few times. The job change analysis could be quite lengthy considering economic fluctuations, global market impact, reduction of employee loyalty, evolving skill qualifications, and the list goes on. I want to talk about career change. Yes, there are still a significant number of people who stay in one career their entire working life, a few in the same job. The rest of us are making career changes. I know that I am probably in my 5th career. The key question is, why do people change careers? For some, it is the discovery that they picked the wrong field at the beginning. They have been miserable for years or finally realized that they truly wanted what they really wanted to pursue. Others want a new challenge. We might hear them saying, nothing here thrills me anymore. I know people who have told me that they just want to do something different. They want to learn or simply make a change. It excites them. Some people get tired of chasing the dollar. Their career has been built on making money because they equated it with success, wanted a higher lifestyle, or expenses dictated the need. There are probably more reasons, and it varies for each person. My conclusion or challenge to our viewers is this: don't settle for staying in the same career for convenience or comfort. There is a big world out there with new possibilities. If you stay in the same career forever, you may become boring or bored, grouchy, burned out, and the negative outcomes list goes on. It takes courage to change, but the result is usually pretty rewarding. Think about it. Maybe it's time for your career to change. Thanks for watching our show. Did we inspire or educate you in some way? You can send thoughts and feedback to us through the email address listed on your screen. Check out our website. It is full of interesting features. Specifically, you can watch past episodes of Lakeshore Focus. Just go to www.lakeshorepublicmedia.org. Click on the TV, scroll down till you see my picture with a different outfit, hopefully. One more click and you can view a list of previously aired shows. Tell your friends and family that you watch Lakeshore Public Television. Join us next week for another Lakeshore Focus. Until then, I'm Keith Kirkpatrick saying, make a positive difference in our world today.